Hello and welcome to a special edition of Ask George, where we reflect on England's T20 World Cup squad announcement ahead of the tournament in the Caribbean and the United States. George, it always feels like we're building up to a World Cup these days. I guess, are we allowed to start getting excited now?
Definitely, especially those of us who are getting to go to the Caribbean for it. Yeah, of course. No, definitely, it's exciting. I think I've written in my piece, England have got a puncher's chance.
I did have a sweepstake with the staff as to how early into the video you would mention the fact you were going, and you can read all of George's exclusives from the tournament. Yep, he's doing the difficult job of going out to the Caribbean and following England in Barbados and in Antigua. And if you subscribe to the Cricketers digital offering from just $3.99, you can do so in the show notes. Let's go on to the question straight away. And
it's not even enough to buy a rum punch.
Absolutely. Another humble brag from our chief correspondent. Let's move on to the questions because I can just hear.
You need to pay my expenses.
Absolutely, yes. Thomas Measures, he's going to intervene with a question for us, and he asks, and we had a lot of these, are England making a gamble with the selection of Jofra Archer?
Oh, yeah, I guess so. But I think it's a gamble worth taking. I mean, it's a gamble, isn't it, in that he's hardly played. He hasn't played for a year. But you know what his ceiling is, and it's not as if he hasn't done it before. He has been bowling for a while in club cricket and in training. I think it's a gamble worth taking. And if it doesn't work, they bring in Mark Wood instead. But I don't know, for all the brilliant white ball cricket or limited overs cricket we've seen in recent years, and for all the brilliant cricketers, I don't know that England have ever had a better white ball bowler, certainly fast ball bowler, than Jofra Archer. And I don't think it's a coincidence that his brief spell fully fit coincided with England winning that first 50-over World Cup. So I think he is a bit special, and I think he is worth taking a bit of a risk with. But you could argue that they're not taking much of a risk because they're really nursing him back to full fitness. And, it's 4 overs. If he is at 100%, he's a terrific asset. I suspect he won't be. I suspect we're asking a little bit too much of him, and as ever, there's a huge amount of hope invested in Jofra because of the potential of what we know he can do. But I think it's a reasonable selection. I do.
What does it say about the options that have been overlooked on this occasion? The Gus Atkinsons and the John Turners of this world.
Well, John Turner's just injured. I mean, John Turner looked really exciting. I think he had a really good blast campaign. I think his economy rate was good, and he's got the weapons, not least a bit of pace and bounce. Not unlike Jofra, but Jofra's actually played quite a lot of cricket over the years. He had done well in various franchise tournaments, and obviously he knows the conditions, it being where he was born and brought up. So, well, at least the start of it in Barbados. So you can be very good and not be as good as Jofra. So I don't think it's any great slight. But John Turner's not fit, and Gus Atkinson's at the start of his career. Jofra has probably knocked out Chris Woakes. And Chris Woakes, that is unfortunate. You know what you're going to get from Chris Woakes generally, which is class and composure. And, he's had a fantastic career. And I'd found a way to take him, I think. But he didn't have a particularly great 50-over World Cup. He's probably lost a wee bit of pace. He's not getting in his IPL side. I don't think it's a horrendous decision. As I say, I would have taken Chris Woakes, but I don't think it's an unreasonable decision to think that Jofra, if he's at his best, offers something that Chris can't. And if Jofra does pull up injured in that Pakistan series, I think it'll be Chris Woakes who replaces him.
Occidental Tourists asks, and this is on a theme on your piece really, is it fair to say England have the batting potential to win the World Cup, but not the bowling?
Well, it's probably simplistic, but it's basically what I think. Yeah, the batting potential is strong. We've seen in the last few weeks in the IPL what England's batters can do, and they do bat a long way down. I don't know how deep Chris Jordan and Adil Rashid will be. Probably Rashid will be 9 or 10. So, and Jordan at 8, I think, if he plays. So there's a lot of batting that gives them the security to go hard early. I think that'll probably be key. The bowling, there's a lot staked on Jofra. And a lot of spinners. It doesn't feel as if England maybe have the bowling weapons of some other sides. I think the best sides don't try and just attack with the bat. And I think there'll be moments in the field where England have to fiddle. They've got quite a few spinning all-rounders, which might give them options, but that feels like strength in numbers rather than strength in depth, if that makes sense. So the bowling isn't as strong as the batting, but if they all stay fit, if Reece Topley is fit for the whole tournament, if Jofra Archer is fit for the whole tournament, if Adil Rashid is at his best, then the 11 they could put out, I think, could be really quite strong and challenging.
You mentioned Chris Woakes' shock earlier. How on earth can anyone consider leaving him out? Asks Tim Doran.
Well, as I say, he is 35 and he'd had a disappointing 50 over World Cup. I mean, I think he, like most of that squad, weren't ready when the tournament started, and he had 2 or 3 games where he bowled as poorly as I've seen him bowl since he was like 17 or something. So I think it'd be a bit harsh to judge him on that, but I think I've said he's not quite able to get those speeds that he once did. He would be used with the new ball. He hasn't got into his IPL side, and Jofra has the potential to add a bit of extra pace, which does matter because we know that Jofra and Chris Woakes have the skills. They've got the variations, but it helps a lot if the gap between your quicker and slower ball is, bigger. And we know that Jofra's top speed, even in the nets this season, he's been bowling in the 90s. As I say, I don't think it's an outrageous decision. They figured that Topley and Jofra were their 2 new ball bowlers. And then what do you do with Woakes? Now, he could have gone instead of Jordan, but Jordan's seen as a death bowler, and he was seen as being a more powerful batter. Not a better batter, but a more powerful batter. Yeah, as I say, it's not what I would have done, but I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't think it's illogical. In fact, I think it's quite consistent. So, yeah, much as everyone likes Chris Woakes. I mean, I love Chris Woakes, but and it does feel like Rob Key is the hunter in Bambi. But trying to be dispassionate about it, it's not completely unreasonable.
We had quite a few questions about the blast and the context around this squad. Tom Burridge probably put it best when he asks, are we devaluing our domestic contest by not respecting performances when selecting the international team?
There were other questions asking about Somerset, weren't there?
There were a few, yeah. We had one.
And Somerset obviously had a brilliant season, and I'm a Somerset supporter. I'm very aware of that. I mean, there'll be Somerset players there. Matt Henry will be there. Van der Verve. I don't know, but you're basically saying, would you go for Will Smeed ahead of Phil Salt? And you wouldn't, would you?
No.
Or Tom Banton ahead of Harry Brook? I mean, you probably wouldn't, would you? So I wouldn't read too much into that, and I wouldn't take it as a slight. Somerset supporters, it's wonderful to have won a trophy, and I don't think the England selectors have been particularly unreasonable there. But asking about the blast in general, I think that we English cricket as a whole probably doesn't take enough pride and doesn't defend in every way it should its domestic competitions as much as I think they should. Having said that, the conditions that the Blast and this World Cup are going to play in are very different, aren't they? And it's not unreasonable to look at players playing in franchise tournaments around the world and see how they're doing. I think Will Smeed, I think, again, struggled in the UAE actually over the winter. I think he got dropped, didn't he, from memory? So it's not unreasonable to look at all those things and see how players are going against lots of different opposition, sometimes better opposition in the IPL, certainly, and come to a judgment. But I wish we didn't put down our own competitions as much, because even in this awfully rainy, disjointed season, I've seen some terrific quality in the county championship, and I still think that the 100 was unnecessary and the blast could have been the future. But I've lost that argument and we move on.
Should we be playing the blast, a bit of blast now?
No, I don't think so. Why?
Well, you've got players who are on the fringes and not playing the IPL, who are playing a bit of championship cricket and not a lot. They can't stake a claim. They can't stay that fresh. Tom Hartley's bowled 1 over since he came back from India. He might not play at all until the Pakistan series starts. Would it have been an opportunity for, I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, but an opportunity for some players to tune up who aren't in the IPL? Say Chris Woakes, for example, who's not playing at all.
Woakes, he is at the IPL, of course, but he's just not playing, which is unfortunate. But look, you make a reasonable point, but I think that we remember what the blast was for, and it was largely to bring cash into the county game up to a point, and also to attract new supporters, and it's done both of those things very well. All you'll get from hosting those games at this time of year is hypothermia. I mean, people just won't go anyway. So I think it would be a disaster. I think the pitches wouldn't be ready for it. I don't think people would attend. We can't base our entire domestic seasons around the next global tournament. And God knows there's plenty of T20 cricket in the schedule anyway. So I take your point. It's not an unreasonable point at all. But the England players are going to play, is it 4 matches against Pakistan right before departing? And then, it's straight into it. Ideally, you would want England in the Caribbean a wee bit earlier than they're going to be. But, the ideal isn't really in the schedule anymore. A lot of the players will have been in the IPL. It's not as if they don't go to the Caribbean often. It's tricky. It's demanding. It's not ideal. But it's also not horrendous.
Richard Dawson asks, are World Cups as important to players now we have lucrative franchise cricket for a lot of the year now, 12 months of the year nearly?
I saw that question come in and I thought, of course, sure it is. And then I thought, actually, do I remember that, was it Devon Conway said, just after he won in the IPL, he said that's the biggest achievement of his life or something, and he had just won the World Test Championship a little while earlier. So I don't know. It's probably not my place to say, but I think that it's not as financially important as it was, but that's probably a good thing, isn't it? Players are better rewarded, and that's terrific. I think it still matters. I mean, I really do, and I'd be disappointed if it didn't. It did feel in the 50-over World Cup as if England weren't ready, and they weren't ready because of a lot of other priorities. But I think they just got it wrong. It's an interesting question, and the sort of thing that someone could write a book about. My instinctive response is to say, and actually, I'm sure the players' instinctive response would still be, no, it's international cricket. It matters. It's representing your country. It's a huge global event. It really, really matters. That's easy, though, isn't it? The real question is, can you prepare for it with everything you got? Can you spend the weeks preparing for this tournament in a way that actually demonstrates that prioritization, as England did before the 2019 World Cup? And that actually is a more complex point and harder to give you a hard yes.
Rick Walton asks, the killer question of the day has to be whether you would vote for Monty Panesar. This is the news that Monty Panesar is going to run in the next general election.
Well, I don't live in Ealing, so that won't be, as I told him, because he texted and asked whether I would.
You're not a vote swapper.
But all I would say about Monty is I've got to know him a little bit, and I wasn't massively always keen on him as a person when he was a player. And what I've seen in the last few years is someone who's tried very hard to improve themselves and worked really hard on that, given up alcohol and all sorts of things. Obviously, he's made some mistakes in the past. I mean, haven't we all? But he clearly has, very publicly. And what do? I mean, you either, sit in a hole and never come out again, or you try and be better. So I think I've got quite a lot of respect for what he's trying to do. I mean, you watch what happened on what was the quiz he was on? What was the quiz he was on?
Mastermind.
Mastermind, of course. And you would suggest that you wouldn't necessarily want him to go on Question Time, but I think that you look at what else is going on in the world, and I'd much rather he was, president of the States than one of the people who might be. And I think he'd have done a better budget than Liz Truss. So is that a bit political? I don't care. So good luck to him, mate.